Hey everyone, Liam here from Solitude again. Thanks for clicking on this video and looking at my channel. It really means a lot to me. Today I am going to go through a thing that I think is really interesting and right up my alley. So if you didn't know already, one of the biggest bands of the past 20 to 25 years is coming to Perth later this year in November. Coldplay, I'm sure you've heard of them. And it's been a really cool sort of thing that the WA government have brought about. So as I understand, the West Australian government have paid for them to come and do a one-off show in Australia and in Perth only, which will incentivize tourism and people to come from over east, potentially overseas as well. Pretty cool idea for the arts and culture industry of Western Australia to get Coldplay over and to play at our Optus Stadium, which is one of the greatest event stadiums recently built in the world. With, you know, it's got great lights and scenery that can be done there. So it's an awesome idea. Anyway, recently it was announced by Coldplay and the West Australian government that they would be doing a competition to find a local Perth act to open the show for them. And this is such a cool idea. I'm so happy that the West Australian government and Coldplay have come together for this idea, because I am such a big West Australian music fan and a big fan of the local music scene here. And I wanted to go through with you some ideas of bands that I think would be great for this show, and I'm going to give you my tip as to who I think they will pick. So if you make it all the way through to the end, you'll hear my tip, and also I'll go through some bands that I think might be considered but probably won't get the gig, and some bands that, you know, will probably just unfortunately have to have a line put through them. So if you go onto the website perth.coldplay.com, you can see where to enter the competition. It's a very simple process. You've basically just got to put in the name of your band or artist, your website, your Instagram, put the name of the track that you want the people judging to listen to. I just assume it's someone who works for the WA government in I don't know, tourism or the arts or something, who's making this decision. I wish I could be involved in that decision-making process, as I love West Australian music, and, you know, I love Coldplay too, I've got to admit. Bit of a closet fan. So yeah, simple process to apply. So if you are a West Australian musician or band, I would encourage you to just put your hat in the ring. But anyway, let's start talking about some West Australian bands who I think will just definitely not get it, unfortunately. And I think it would be great if some of these bands were on there. They might actually even just ask for one of these bands or artists just to appear as a second warm-up act as well, and maybe pay them a good amount. I should also mention that the West Australian government are giving $15,000 to the winning band as well, as a grant to help them. Such an awesome idea. Anyway, bands that I think will probably not get the gig, and these are the ones that are, you know, established West Australian bands who already have big followings. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to win this contest. I don't think that's what they're looking for. So bands like San Cisco, Eskimo Joe, Birds of Tokyo, Tame Impala, of course, and even like an artist like Troye Sivan. I think all of these bands and artists would actually, you know, make a lot of sense to be supporting Coldplay in their local town, because they all come from Perth, but they're all just too big. I think that they're looking more for an up-and-coming band to give this grant to kind of say, hey, you know, we like what you're doing with the local music scene, here's some money, and here's a, you know, really a great place to get exposure. So I think you can put a line through those bands. There's some other ones that are kind of going in that direction that I think unfortunately will get overlooked as well. So these would be like really safe options to pick, but I just don't think they'll go in this direction. I don't think they'll go for Spacey Jane. They're already doing really big and they're already getting really big and doing really well for themselves. I don't think they'll go for Stella Donnelly. She's kind of like that as well, I think, getting pretty big herself. I don't think they'll go for a band like Methyl Ethel either. I mean, I think that they could maybe fit the bill. They kind of have a similar sort of sound to Coldplay, but, you know, they do pretty well for themselves already. And another one that I think, unfortunately, they probably won't go for is a band that I really like and have spoken about a lot on this channel is Coterie. They've got a lot of good stadium experience with their shows supporting 660 in New Zealand, but I just don't think they'll go in that direction either, unfortunately for them. They may well, though. They could prove me wrong. So there's also some bands that I think that will probably, potentially apply just for the sake of it, but that I think that the people choosing will probably just not pick because they don't really fit the vibe of Coldplay. You've got to remember, everyone who's going to this concert is, you would expect like a Coldplay fan or like just kind of a music fan in general, and they're kind of looking for more sort of, easy to the ear sort of music, which is what Coldplay are. They're, very popular, very palatable. So I don't think they'll go for bands like this that have a little bit more of a niche sound. I don't think they'll go for like a Sly Withers. I don't think they'll go for a Southern River Band. I could imagine Southern River Band kind of getting behind meme culture in this a little bit and applying and putting their name out there and the internet getting behind them, but I don't think they'll go in that direction. I don't think they'll go for like your kind of more punk and metal direction bands. Like Shangri-La is one that I really like. I don't think they'll go in that direction. Sorry, Shangri-La. The Decline, another, probably the greatest punk band out of Perth over the last 20 years. Don't think they'll go in that direction. I doubt the Decline will apply, but imagine if they did do the warm-up, that would be so funny. Psychedelic Porn Crumpets, that sort of thing, I don't think they'll be going there either. Love Junkies, I mean, that sort of music, yeah, it's just not going that direction for me. So anything metal and punk and a little bit edgier, a little bit more rockier, I don't think they'll go there. I don't think they're going to go in a hip hop direction. I don't see that working with Coldplay either. So any of the hip hop acts probably won't get that spot. Okay, so let's talk about some bands and artists that I think actually could be considered and could get the gig. So you probably, if you followed my channel, would have heard of some of these bands spoken about before. I think this band that I'm going to first start off with is actually a really good chance, and that's Dulcie. Now, this is an up-and-coming all-girl band, and they play, kind of just like alternative pop rock. They kind of fit the Coldplay sound a little bit. They're pretty palatable, easy on the ear, but still kind of up and coming as well. If they're going for, kind of like we want different representation, they might go, all girl group. They kind of represent something a little bit different. They very well could be considered, and I love their music, so I hope they are. Okay, a few others that I think that they'll have a look at, but I don't think are as good as chances, say, Dulcie are. Maybe Death by Denim, a little bit easier on the ear, a little bit more towards kind of like that psychedelic direction, doing some great things locally. I think they'll have their hat in the ring. I think Great Gable could be considered, although maybe they're doing a little, they're probably growing a little bit big themselves as well. But I think that they could fit the bill. Their sound, especially lately, has kind of been moving away from that reggae rock sound and more kind of towards an alternative rock sound that is a little bit more similar to Coldplay, but not really. But I think if I rocked up there and Great Gable played, it would sound fine to me. Probably one of the biggest, I'll put these two bands together, actually. Two of the biggest up and coming bands in Perth right now, this year especially, could very well be considered just because they're so relevant, and they are Old Mervs and Dice. Both not really exactly the same sort of sound as Coldplay, but once again, kind of like what I was saying before with Great Gable, like if Dice or Old Mervs rocked up and played with Coldplay, I don't think people would complain. They would sound fine to me. So just because they're going so well right now with their live shows, their streaming, their airtime on Triple J, they'll probably be in the forefront of the minds of the people choosing. And also, I'd probably put South Summit there as well as another band who's probably about the third in line of big up and coming Perth bands at the moment who could be considered in that kind of surf rock, reggae rock sound, which is really big in Australia right now. Not really Coldplay sound, but could well be considered still. Two that I would really like to see considered, but I just don't think that they've got like the growth that maybe a Dice or an Old Mervs do. But I think they would actually fit the bill really well, would be Ghost Care. I think their sound is a little bit more kind of niche, a little bit more alternative, but still at the same time easy enough on the ear for a Coldplay audience to really enjoy. I think that if I was actually choosing who the winner was, I would probably be going with Ghost Care, in my opinion, because I think that, you know, they're a little bit more daring. They deserve to have you know, a lucky break from the work they're putting in, and yeah, I could really just see people really digging their music that they play live at a Coldplay concert, and maybe getting some more notoriety because of it. Another one that I would love to see considered would be Those Who Dream, which is a two-piece band that are doing kind of like that neo-pop punk thing that's kind of like TikTok soundy. I really like their music, and they could be considered. I don't think that they probably will get chosen though, because they're a little bit more kind of punky, but they could get looked at. Okay, and I'm going to wrap it up now with who I actually think will win, and I'd love to hear everyone else's comments and opinions as well about who you think's going to win. Maybe it might be one of the ones I've already mentioned, or someone who I haven't mentioned. I don't know every artist and band in Perth, obviously, so it could be one that I just haven't heard of before, of course. But the band that I think should win, and probably will win, as an objective choice, is The Fame. And this is because The Fame would fit the bill the best. They would sound, of all Perth bands that we have, the closest to Coldplay. I would think that they would, you know, if they rocked up to open for a Coldplay gig and everyone was there, you know, wanting to get warmed up, everyone would be super happy with what they were hearing. The Fame are, you know, a really kind of easy on the ear pop rock sort of sounding band. They sound very modern. They sound very clean and tight, well produced. Well, when they're playing live, obviously it's a little different, but they still do play very clean and tight live. Their sound is kind of similar to Coldplay's. I would also compare it to maybe kind of like sort of modern Fall Out Boy as well. They've also just got a good profile. They're really big on social media. They've got a healthy, strong streaming game. They have reason to be rewarded with a prize like this, in my opinion. So the people choosing the winner might steer away from them just because they're of all these ones that I've mentioned that I think could be considered. They definitely would be the most successful right now. But you know, maybe with such a big prize like this, you've got to go to the top because, you know, they deserve it the most, potentially. They wouldn't necessarily be like the underdog choice. They would be like the smart choice and the easy choice of all the bands that I think will be considered. But that's where I think it's going to go. So what do you reckon? Where do you think they'll go with the choice for the band or artist to support Coldplay? Are you going to go see them? I don't have a ticket right now. I might get one if I can find one on Marketplace or Gumtree. But hey, thanks for watching this video and tuning in. And please subscribe. Thanks. Bye.